everybody. It is Mike Levin on Friday, August 5th, 2022. I figure I'll do some driving videos still. I switched mostly back to the talking head, working at the computer videos, and I've made some enormous progress of late. As soon as I sort of let myself relax after the move, right? Because it was a move July into August. So for the month of July, I've been in the new place. This is my first full month in the place. And it's hard settling in, I have to say. You know, you've got a lot of stuff, and then it's sort of put in a pile, and then you have to sort it back into your life. This goes here, and that goes there. And then it's a chance to reinvent. It's a chance to streamline things in ways you have a new opportunity to do, because it's a forced rethink, and when you go through a forced rethink, can things be better? And so, it is clear that I'm getting a certain something out of talking to the YouTubes. The folks that are shaping up to be sort of an audience out there, people who actually tune in to things I have to say for some strange reason. Well, a fair number of them do keep coming back, and I am getting fairly good feedback on the comments of the videos. I think I am onto something, and I think a lot of it has to do with how long it takes to become how much of an expert at what sort of thing, and a sort of paranoia surrounding that you're taking up the right things to become expert at, so that it does not become obsolete before you're ready to retire, for example. You want the ability to exchange your knowledge, your know-how, and your expertise for economic currency at any time in your life, from the moment you take up the skills to the moment you retire, which may really be never, because you took up what you wanted to do because you love it. And if you love it and you're in it for the exercise of the craft, the process of doing, the journey is the reward, then what you want is the ability to continue to improve and refine your skill forever. This is a thing that musicians have, perhaps athletes, martial artists, anyone in a skilled craft or trade where the tools of the trade have standardized for good reasons over long periods of time. So, a violin, for example, is a very well-defined thing. There might be countless variations of the violin, right? There might be infinite varieties of what could constitute a violin. However, there are certain commonalities. There is what you might call a average specification for a standard violin. And if you're telling someone who knows how to play one, they will be playing one, well, then there's a high confidence level that they're going to be quite comfortable on the device you give it to them if it meets that specification. a classical carpenter, these things like the hammer in their hand become an extension of their body. And as they're driving the nails into boards, and they go on to the next nail, and they go on to the next nail, and they're picking them up, and they're putting them in, and they're doing their job bit by bit, piece by piece, guided by years of probably hard won, because not all knowledge and know-how is easily won. These things are not the result of a clean, linear path. In most cases, people have lives, and there have been long, circuitous paths. There have been lots of detours and dead ends and red herrings, if you will, false trails, having to restart things multiple times. So I guess one of the largest effects I'm helping direct people to take charge of in their life, to think about and to make adjustments in their life decisions at maybe an earlier point in their lives than it took me to figure it out and come around to it, is that in tech, most things will change over the years. No matter what you take up as your main thing, there are very few truisms that cut across the ages. Now, the C programming language is definitely one of them, because the modern digital information age was greatly built on the fact that Unix bust out all over, right? Unix made it big, and it did so because of a lot of tricks that we attribute to virtual machines, the kind of, common machine language, interoperable, because you can reproduce that machine on different hardware. Those basic tricks were built into the C programming language because BCPL that came before it, and the concept of portability of code between different hardware by having a portable operating system. That concept was there. Unix was a very good implementation, and then it got away from the people who invented it, which was sort of a rebel-spirited group within Bell Labs back before, everything lost its identity and became part of AT&T, and then the split up, so things are now all over the place. But back in the day, it was it Murray Hill, New Jersey? Murray Hill, New Jersey, I think is where it was the Bell Atlantic facility where most of this stuff happened, and it's where Dennis Ritchie created the C programming language in support of his coworker, Ken Thompson, to create the Unix portable operating system, right? It was designed to be good, solid computer science. It had all this stuff like data piping, and everything is seen as a file, readable, possibly writable. And commands should be short and very sweet. So something like ls might have a dozen parameters to it that make it a formatting language in and of itself. So Unix is very much like that. A short command supports a lot of arguments, parameters, variable input, so it can be used in a lot of different ways. And then its output can be piped through standard communication, devices within the hardware, thought of as standard out and standard in, STDOUT, STDIN. These are two places you can read and write information where you can be pretty assured other things will have access to it, because it's the standard place to put that stuff. So you could pipe one program's standard out into the next program's standard in. And then in that way, you could filter the output through subsequent programs until it's almost like you wrote a new program. So Unix was made with a philosophy of lots of little tools. You specialize in your bit, you allow it to take input, you allow it to give output, and everyone will live together communicating happily ever after. It's a beautiful vision, and a lot of people thought so, so it was copied a lot. It was copied in what I believe is the TOPS operating system that Amiga-DOS was ultimately based on. And so a lot of Unix's philosophies came down to the Amiga computer that I kind of grew up on, came of age with the Amiga. I came of age with the Coleco Atom. Nuts. But because of things my dad figured out, and he was pretty proud of the fact he figured it out, you could get a much better deal from Coleco than you could from Commodore. Now, had my dad known the full story, I think he would have definitely gone with Commodore, because I don't think he knew that Commodore was created by a Holocaust survivor of Auschwitz, Jack Tramiel. And he started out in, I think calculators, and built it on up into a computer empire there for a while. $1 billion a year business back when that was a lot. And so I learned Linux eventually via first the Amiga with its Unix-likeness in the late 80s, early 90s. Switched to DOS because Amiga went away, and I was very bitter about that, very bitter for a while. But then I learned I was able to adapt much of my knowledge and know-how over to the rapidly becoming more popular Linux world. It eventually became like the second coming of the Amiga to me, I'll tell you. I'm at that point right now. The Linux and Python combination, especially with the Jupyter Lab desktop, is all now kind of feeling very Amiga-like to me. Inter-process communication, automation, really neat projects. So join me again soon as I talk about those neat projects, because they're really clicking now that I got me my Linux containers.